Hi, my name is Holly Amato, and I have Dr. Emily Jacobs, author, leadership coach, and founder of Empowered Moms in the Southeast Michigan area with me on the Onward and Upward show. And today we are talking about moving through difficult life circumstances and coming out on the other side a better version of yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today, Emily. I'm really looking forward to our conversation and our discussion and really getting your expert perspective on this topic. But before we jump in, it's January. So I was thinking that we could start out by hearing some of your 2025 plans. I know that you are super busy and you're in everything, you're everywhere, you're doing so much, but I'd love to hear, what's on your hit list for this year?
Oh, fun or professional? Either one. Yeah.
Either one. Do
Yeah.
both.
I mean, my family, my kids and I and my husband, we always like to plan a trip around spring breaks. We're going to go to Texas, which I'm super excited about. I haven't been there since I was a kid. And then, in terms of Empowered Moms, we've got our big event in October, which seems like it's so far away, but we're doing a lot of planning around that now. And then, really just growing our community is the biggest part on my business end, on my professional end, and really showing women that dreams don't end at motherhood. That's like our big claim to fame for Empowered Moms in our community through our networking events and our bigger events. And then just more coaching and speaking. I've got a couple speaking engagements lined up I'm super excited about this year. And I don't know, I'm just really excited. I like January. I love the fresh start. My birthday is in January. So to me, it's like a whole new, it is the new year, new you, where I'm like, I don't want to be, there's certain parts of my previous version of myself that I really do try to let go of that in January. It does feel like a fresh start.
I love it. So I'm in January birthday with you.
Right.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I just had my birthday. It's like we're getting older, but we're getting wiser and better.
I love it.
Right? Right. Okay, great. So I know you've got a lot to offer today and on this topic, moving through difficulties in life and staying empowered and or getting empowered. I love that you use the word empowered. I work with a lot of, people going through divorce, and that's a huge life circumstance. So I'd love to hear from you, however you'd like to focus in on the broad topic of really, as you're going through a really difficult life circumstance. I said divorce, it could be anything, right? What is it that you feel like you're able to do with people that are coming to you in that space?
Yeah, well, that's the majority of the people that I work with are highly ambitious women, either in leadership or they're dealing with just difficulties in motherhood or the workforce or owning a business. So a lot of the people that I primarily work with are, we kind of feel like we can do it all, which I'm going to take a step back and say, yeah, absolutely. I tell my kids all the time, there is no such thing as I can't. So of course you can. And then, and not if, but, and then we choose, I use this word a lot, but we choose to continue to burn ourselves out because we think that this is the right way to do it. And we kind of spiral ourselves into a drain. What I love helping people and women get through is how do we work through burnout faster? Because we're not going to stop being ambitious. And that usually won't hold us back. And not pursuing our dreams and passions can be a detriment to us. Those of us people that are, we have so much on our heart and our mind and the impact we want to make in this world that it's really hard to hold ourselves back. What I really love to help people with is check in with their boundaries. Boundaries is the biggest form of self-respect and self-love, but we've got to scale that back to talk about boundaries, talk about how they ask and receive help, which can be extremely hard for very successful or very ambitious women. And and really just how to discern what really is the priority versus am I just choosing, don't hate me for saying these words all the time, am I choosing to busy myself over not dealing with something I really should just deal with first? Because, I'm going to raise my hand. I can easily do that. I can just go busy myself in work if there's troubles at home or things like that. So those are the things I really love to help people work through.
So I love that you said that busy yourself. And I also heard something where procrastination is also sometimes a sign of, you're dealing with some sort of a trauma or something's going on and you don't have the bandwidth for it. And so it looks like you're doing nothing, but it all kind of works together in that. And it's interesting to me. I'd love to know from you, what do you do with someone when they come to you and they're really in a tough spot where they just don't even know where to start? I love the boundary conversation. And you just kind of, I'm assuming you sit down and kind of do like a little intake with them, or you kind of get like a triage, if you will, because I know you have the medical background, so that'll make sense.
Yeah.
But what does that look like when someone's just so stressed, or like I said, going through a divorce or something so big where they just don't even know where they can even start?
Well, I think too, it comes from you feel like you have a lack of control. And so that lack of control will lead to that overwhelm, or maybe even the anxiety or the I can't do it, those types of things. So this lack of control is there are things you can't control. We know that. But there are also things you can. And so I think what happens is we feel like this big weight and this big ceiling, or something is we're hitting up against it because we're like, I can't control anything then. Right. So we like give up on
Sure.
that. And when people come to me and they're really stuck, which is usually they're looking for that clarity, they're looking for the answers, but I don't give them the answers. Like coaches don't do that. Like I always relate it to personal training. You can hire a personal trainer. That personal trainer is not going to do your push-ups. They're going to guide or help you and help you figure out how you're going to do it. So you're right, peeling it back, taking that intake form, asking the right questions, I can learn what's keeping them stuck, what choices are they feeling not in control of, and what are they thinking their biggest obstacles and barriers are, which again, can sometimes involve other people, like you said, whether it's a divorce, a job. It could be a really difficult manager they're working with. It could be even children. It could be anything. And so where or who or what are we thinking is keeping you stuck? Because that could be the truth, but it also could be something. And I don't mean it to sound like it's in your head, but there's stuff we circle around in our head that we believe is happening. But the actual fact over here is, that's not the actual truth, or I haven't dug deeper to find that truth. And I relate that a lot with jobs. A lot of people come to me with like, I used to love doing what I'm doing, or I've been doing that for 20 years. And it's just not, it's not what I want to be doing anymore, but I don't know what I do want to do. I've had that a lot where it's like, well, let's actually scale that one back and talk about one, what's not working at work, and have you communicated that to a boss or to anybody? The other thing is, what do you love about it and what lights you up? And sometimes the answer is we have to close a chapter. And people are really scared to close a chapter. Like you said, whether it's divorce, I think that's the fear of what's on that other side is what prevents people. That's one of the biggest variables. And yet something in that other side, I don't say excites them, but makes them feel safe or makes them feel more secure. It's just really hard to get there. And I think as a coach, that's where I try to pull people through that muck of getting there. And what usually happens, and this isn't for everybody, but on that other side of finding that clarity and the accountability and the working through the hard stuff, like the hard push-ups, we're going to go through some hard conversations. Most people will, and I really feel like if it's true alignment, and I can feel that in the conversation with the client, is when they get to that other side, they're like, it wasn't so bad, or I wish I did it sooner. I wish I believed in myself sooner. I wish I believed I was worth this transformation or change. And that's kind of the majority of how I help get people through that. And again, everybody's different, and the speed at which people go through that is different. It all depends on, unfortunately, it's the vulnerability. If you bring vulnerability to the table, we can work so much faster than if that's a little bit trickier for you.
Sure. And I'm assuming too, with working with these women, a lot of them have families and obviously empowered moms, young kids. That just adds a separate layer. I know working with people that are going through divorce, looking to buy and sell their home, their biggest concern, especially with young kids, is where am I going to live, which is a basic need. So that was my story. That creates such anxiety. Like you said, the fear of the unknown, where am I going to end up? And it's just, I think when you've got that fear and that the unknown and the anxiety, you just have that whole like brain fog and swirling around. So it's amazing that you're able to come alongside and do that, especially with kids. I don't know, is that something that you feel where you're really working on how to manage scenarios with kids as well? Do you work with the family together? What does that piece look like when you can see that someone's got young kids going through this huge life experience, potentially has to change so many things, and they're like really big things? I'm assuming just adds another layer to it.
I mean, it does add another layer, of course, because there's this huge responsibility and also the dependence of, these little people, right? Or bigger people, whatever age, the children are or your kids are. I think it's also, there's a lot of guilt with that. And as you're saying, I'm sure it happens in divorce and other, like you said, major life changes. Like there was times I stayed in a job that was a little bit toxic because I'm like, my family needs me to do this. Like this is bringing in the income for the house we just bought or the things we want. And over time, what I really try to do is empower the person, because if the mom, I think it was my mother-in-law that said this or something, or someone is, if the mom's not okay, no one's okay. So the mom, I need to help the mom get stronger with herself, her self-worth, her values, her choices in a way that she feels very empowered. And I think that's where Empowered Moms is really helpful in, a little bit of the backstory is that I watched my mom kind of deteriorate over time. My mom was so passionate and like vibrant and dreamer and like just a ball of energy. And she really still was till the end. She passed away a few years ago. But as a little girl, like I was watching it on the inside and watching someone not take care of herself, tell me her dreams are over. Like I had kids, like you just give up your life for your kids. And it was like this badge of honor that turned into bitter and resentment. And I was like, but mom, congratulations. Like you did great. We're in our 20s. Like that was, decades ago. But I'm like, we're in our 20s. You did fantastic. Go live your life now. And it was almost like too late for her. It was always these excuses. And I just remember being younger, saying to myself, this is not going to be my story. This does not seem like the life that I'm sure she wasn't dreaming of it being like this. Right. So again, different times, different societal norms then, and also different mindset. I don't think certain generations had the tools and knowledge that we have now. They were definitely not as open as we are now. So they kept it all in.
Right.
And I think it kind of started like crushing them. Yeah. And again, I guess I think the fear of what people would think, right? Like all of those things. So I really do think that when I'm able to help the actual mom or the person or the woman get better, whether it's taking better care of yourself, setting those healthier boundaries, asking, receiving help, really, that's like a huge one for a lot of people, or slowing down your yes response. Like how many people do we just say yes to everybody? Give. We have nothing left for ourselves at the end of the day. And then don't hate me for saying this, but then you wonder why you're exhausted and burnt out. Like where in that day did you choose yourself? Where in that day did you choose, like, this just isn't the best decision right now. I'm just giving all of my energy to everybody else. So, I think there's a lot of multifaceted, approaches to this, but I really primarily focus on the one individual because I know there's a trickle down effect. And again, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a mom, whether it's a manager and a leader, I mean, I've had a lot of leaders I've been coaching, it trickles down to their employees. But we've got to up level that one person and then empower them, and then they will empower others. Like I said, whether it's their children or workforce or things like that.
Okay, that's amazing. So what would you say your ideal client would look like? I know we've talked about a lot of, going through different things, life changes, burnout seems to be a big one. Who's typically coming to you, and what would you say, like, if you had to do like, hey, on a level from 1 to 10, they come to me when they're like a 9, what I'm saying? When they probably should have came to you when they were like a 4, people say like, you're at a 15, I need you at a 3, so do you find that they're like, who are they that you feel like is your ideal client that you really can get in there and make a huge difference? And where are they at when they typically come to you, and why? So I guess there's 3 there, kind of a lot. Why do you think they wait so long?
Well, let's go backwards because I love that question first. So for the ones, the majority of the ones come when they're at their wits' end. Like enough is enough. I'm going to wave the white flag. I can't do this on my own. Why I think they wait so long is because they don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit that they needed help, right? And I'll be the first one. Like I could burn myself out. I'm a pro at burnout. I'm such a pro at burnout. I'm also a pro at getting out of it. I'm also now very passionate about helping people. And I feel like they come when it's too late. Like, all right, I tried all the things. And that's the thing, is that we only know, like, there's only so much that our knowledge capacity has. But once we learn more tools, now we can add more to that. And what I really love helping those women do is get through burnout faster. Because I don't know if you could admit that, but again, I've still chosen to burn myself out. And I was like, man, I really did overcommit again. what is wrong with me? Like, do I really think that I'm Superwoman? Yeah, no, I think inside, I really do think that saying yes to everything is just the right answer. And even my husband and I were talking about this the other day. Is like, just because you get offered, a speaking engagement or this and that doesn't mean you have to say yes to all of them. And to me at first, I was like, but why wouldn't I? That just sounds amazing. I want to speak on stages. I love helping, events and things like that. And so to me, it was just like a weird mindset shift of, it's like, well, sometimes it doesn't align with your brand or it doesn't align with what you're doing, or, you got to look at the big picture of the month. And so there's just other things where I think a different brain set sometimes kind of helps you see that bigger picture. And then I've hired my own coaches because I guarantee that I wouldn't be where I am today without my own either professional coaches, personal business. Like I got them in my pocket. I know who to call and who to pay for help when I need it, because I think we all get stuck in our own heads. We have these triggers on our shoulders that try to pull us down, like guilt, self-doubt, insecurity, imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to do this thing? And we get in our heads, and that's where we get stuck. That's where we use our own tools, and our own tools aren't working. And then it's like, okay, wave the white flag. Can someone just help me get through this a little faster and less painful? Again, whether it's paying for help, whether you have a friend, whether you have a mentor, things like that. But I would say that's the majority of the people that come to me. The other ones are leaders trying to help their employees that are burned out. So I've had that. And then I've also done workshops and teams with small businesses that are really working on up-leveling like their staff and their whole like company and team. That's kind of another different group. We don't have to go into that one, but those are the ones that I really like dive in, and I try to get to know the individuals and try to get to know the cohesiveness of the group. And then how do we bring that and enhance that? So optimizing. So we kind of talked about the really burnout person that's like at a 10, right? 9 or 10, crying every day. Like, I can't do this anymore. I've waited too long. And then there's the ones like the 5 and 6, like right in the middle, where they're like, something's just not great. I'm ready to optimize. I'm ready to take action. And those are the people I enjoy. I enjoy working with everybody that comes. It's like, I'm ready to take action and get my life back, basically.
Wow, that's a lot. And I love all of that because we're so complex as women. And one thing that you said that really kept sticking out is, learning how to say no, because we do have that syndrome where we feel like we have to be superwoman. And I think it does, a lot of it, for those of us who are mothers, it does come from that, I think, especially when you feel like we're supposed to be able to solve all the problems. My guess is that's potentially how we lead us down the road of burnout, is thinking that if it's going to be done, it has to be on us. So that's a huge lesson in and of itself, that learning to let it go and not take full accountability and responsibility for every single thing in our lives.
Yeah.
And learning to say no is tough. I can only imagine you're likely coaching on that. And what does that look like? And and you mentioned staying on brand. So these women who are in business for themselves, a lot of them entrepreneurs, business women. So that's, something to keep in mind too, that some things just don't line up with the brand, and it's not going to pull you down the direction you want to go.
Well, and it's also when you really think about the value of your time, energy, and money, right? Because that's most people's biggest barrier to moving forward is, I don't have enough time, or I don't have the money to do that. Like, these are kind of the excuses, and we all do it. But like, when we say to someone, if someone calls us and asks us to help, and we're like, I don't have time for that. Well, we all know, like, pull that back. You can make time for anything you want to make time for. Let's just be blunt about it. Like, you honestly can. The truth is, you don't want to do that thing, or you want to be doing or finishing this other project or whatever. But how do we say that politely, right? Because, I don't want to help you today. And when you hear the word, this is like the worst word in the world. I hate hearing it. I know we say it all the time, which is not, bad, but people love to tell you how busy they are. When you say, "Hi, how are you? How was your weekend?" and it gets this laundry list of how busy these people are, to me, that's exhausting. I don't want to hear that. And I don't want to say it. And I don't want to be the person that let me just tell you all the billions of things that I've done this weekend that I'm exhausted by, because you heard me say at the beginning, like, that was all choice. Now, I get it. Sometimes we need to vent. That's different. Venting, we all need that, right? We got to get it out of our body. But it's living in that and complaining about it and then choosing it the next day. So when we talk about saying no, what I really help people do, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I say that with like a smile, because I still do it and I love doing it. and I love making people happy, and it brings me so much joy. I have to realize, and so if you're listening and that's you too, is where's your limit at that? Have you taken care of yourself today or this week or whatever? Have you done the things that you need to do so you don't feel that burned out? And then sure, 100% overgive. Do whatever you need to do. Like I had a problem with overgiving. And then I was just like, oh, I just need to be okay with just regular giving. Like we don't have to go above and beyond for everybody, because then I got to write the story of complaining about it, right? Like I had no time for myself and I wanted to rewrite that story. I didn't want to hear that. So what I help people with is slowing down your yes response. Like honestly, just pause, just don't answer right away. That's like so hard for some people to do, is to not immediately respond to the text or the email, and then they're afraid it's going to get lost. Well, let me tell you something. It very well could get lost. And what's the problem with that? They will circle back if it's emergent or if it's really urgent, right? So I used to be an ICU nurse, right? Like we responded to every little ding, every little this, every little that. So everything was an emergency. When we treat everything like an emergency that's not an emergency, that is your quickest way to burn out. It is your quickest way to burn out. And I did it as a new mom. And I did it when I was self-employed and I started my business. And my husband's like, this is not emergent, Emily. There's no fire happening. You're like jumping at like every little thing when I first started. And I think that that's just really important to just pump the brakes, take a deep breath. And I know there's a really great book out there. I can't remember the author right now, but it's called The Best Yes. So there's like 3 answers to the question. No, I'm not going to do this for you. Yes, I am going to do this. And then I want you to pause and think, is this the best yes? Because if you take a deep breath and a second to think about what else am I, because if you're saying yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Time, energy, money, family, whatever other commitments you had. So when you say yes, you want to think about what's the reciprocal no that you're saying no to. So that's what I really try to, that's one like just kind of tangible tip. And then one last tangible tip with that is, because when people have a hard time saying no, it's really hard, is to say thank you for asking and to start with that. That'll give you a pause for a minute to say, wow, thank you for asking me to be on your podcast. I don't know. I should think of something else. Well, thank you for asking me to take you to the airport. You know, I love helping. Unfortunately, my plate's really full tomorrow. Maybe if you don't find someone, circle back, but then follow up with something that you would actually do. If you're just like, it's a flat out no, the sooner you can get that clarity, the other person can hear it and they will move on. Because if it's wishy-washy, just like being a mom with kids, you know they are going to walk all over that. There's manipulative people out there. There's people that'll guilt trip you. You were the last person. I need you. I need you. I need you. Right? Like this is all enabling, especially when we won't even get into codependence, but that might happen in relationships that you talk to and work with a lot, Holly, is there's a manipulation, but the clearer you can just say no, the better. But if you have a hard time, then say thank you. If you can refer them to someone else, if you have to just be helpful in a different way, but not do that thing. And your gut and your heart are usually telling you that it's, you know, right away when you get asked something and you're like, there is no way I want to do this tomorrow or the next day. I mean, no. So sit with it for a minute before you answer it, because there is a reason for that. I don't believe in coincidences, and don't fight that.
So if I were, let's say case study time. If I were to come to you, let's use me as an example. So I've been through a divorce. I know where my head was at with all of that. So I come to you and I'm a 9 or a 10, because I would have been back in the day had I been able to come to you. And if you were doing this back 12 years ago, what does it look like? So I find you potentially online, or I'm referred to. What does that look like with how I get to work with you? Yeah. How does that whole picture?
Yeah. So how it works is I want to jump on a call, because I got to get to know the person that either they're about to hire me or I'm about to serve them, because that does matter to me. So it's like a 30-minute call, 30-minute call. And I'm going to ask questions, basically like, what are the challenges? What are you hoping to get out of working with someone like me? How did you find me? Like, why me type of thing? Because that matters too, to see if there's an alignment there. So I've really called, I don't know what people call it, like a discovery call, but I want to get to know this person first, especially if it's a one-on-one coaching, which is very intimate. And that matters to me. So we'll jump on a call. Usually I can tell right away if it's the right fit, so I can be honest with people. But most of the advertising and marketing the messaging I put out there, the right people are coming, right? And I think that matters too. If you're a business person, like that messaging matters so that the right people find you. And then we really just kind of either set up a plan. When I usually start with someone, It's about 12 weeks. So it's about 3 months of weekly calls. And I really encourage those to not be spread out more because, again, remember, if it's the urgent person that's like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, even waiting 7 days can be really hard. One of my options is, I don't know if you've heard of the walkie-talkie app called Voxer, but
Yes.
it's amazing. And so what I also offer is the in-between. So if we work together every Wednesday at noon, and on Wednesday, you're going to feel great because I don't know if you ever worked with coaching, but it's like that first day, you're like, oh, I feel great Wednesday, and then Thursday, and then it starts fading, right? It's just because we haven't gotten to that skill set yet and built you up. Well, there's the walkie-talkie app in between where you could say, Emily, it's Friday. Like, I don't even, what's going on? Like, I'm having all these challenges or these issues, and we literally can talk through it that day. So it's kind of 24/7 coaching for 3 months to really, I mean, that's what's going to get someone through it faster.
Okay. So that's amazing that you offer that. And you said if it's one-on-one, do you have group coaching as
Yeah.
well?
So once a year, I do a 12-week group coaching kind of course with live coaching, and it's in a group setting. And that can really build those relationships with other people that are going through something similar. So once a year, I offer a 12-week mentorship. It's usually in the fall. And then throughout the year, we do some stuff throughout the year. So it's not just the 12 weeks, but that is meant for people that are really looking for that community support, the ongoing afterwards. And a lot of times it's the accountability, it's building those friendships, but being surrounded by people that are going through something similar can be really magical with enhancing your outcomes as well. And because then there's the real truth of you're not alone in this. And I think you know that with a lot of people you deal with, you feel alone. They all come to us and they feel alone. And so we share other stories or connect them with other people. And it's like, okay. And sometimes when you see someone else and you're like, okay, well, if they got through it and I know them and I know their story, maybe I can too. And we said it at the beginning. I know it's really generic to like really just believe in yourself, but it's so true. We think that someone else is that much more special. And I'm sorry, like we're all kind of the same out here. I mean, we all have different skills and gifts and the way we use them is different, but I mean, we're all just people surviving. So we don't always know what goes on behind those closed doors. And that's what I really love about the group mentorship is that they really, the ones that kind of can get really vulnerable, they build that relationship up so much faster because they realize they're not alone. They move through their challenges a little bit faster too, and different. They move through it differently than one-on-one. One-on-one's very intimate and intense in a way that like, it's just us. Like nobody else is hearing us, which it can be great too. And then in the group one is the one that really is looking more for that like community support as well.
So before you even said all of that, in my mind, I was thinking we have to hit on community because especially women, I feel like we are so built for community and relationship. And we have all these words we have to get out, right, during our day. And so having that to me would also exactly what you said. You're in a group of women, you're finding out I'm not the only one that feels like I dropped the ball. I'm not the only one that can't do everything. And even though that would make sense to know that, we don't always get that. So that's a huge camaraderie. I think that's probably very healing just in those atmospheres. And you might even have people that go from a group, I would assume, scenario to saying, okay, now I'd love some one-on-one time because maybe there are some things that I didn't want to talk about in the group, but having both and being able to have friendships and just finding like-minded people, especially going through a divorce. There was like a group called Divorce Care that I went through. And the reason why it worked so well is because it was topics specific to going through this life event. And you can't always go to other people because maybe they don't understand it, or maybe they're just tired of hearing about it. So what a great opportunity to have a group where you can talk about the things that you're going through with people who get it. And we'll be able to reverberate it and give you some scenarios and some opportunity to possibly learn something new.
Well, and I think it's different from family and friends because family and friends, there's an emotional attachment. That's just the way it is. And you're right. They're looking out for you and they've known you since you were a little kid or these types of things. This is your clean slate. You get to start over in a group like that. Exactly kind of what you're talking about too is people only know what you tell them and how you show up. So if you're working on this optimal, better version of yourself, and obviously, being some vulnerability in that as well. And then you have the support of people that are watching you grow and helping you and push you through it faster, and knowing where you came from like 12 weeks ago or 6 months ago. I mean, there's nothing greater than someone just rooting for you and your biggest cheerleader as you're going through something really tough, or even starting a new business. Some of the women in our mentorship program are starting new businesses. And so that can be really scary to go from like corporate or from your job to now starting a new business. I think I sat on that dream of mine for 3 years because I'm like, it's going to be so lonely out there. I literally had no clue. I've been in the hospital setting for 20 years. I'm like, well, an entrepreneur, you're just by yourself all day. I mean, you and I both know that's very not true, but it's how you put yourself out there. I just didn't know. And until you kind of just start putting yourself out there, you don't know that. And I think that's why I love the group mentorship, the one I'm currently running. We have about 22 women in it right now, just to kind of see their growth every week. And we celebrate wins together, or we talk about challenges, and might be in motherhood, might be in business, and it might be in just the difficulty with boundaries and the difficulty with the mom guilt as you're navigating all these things. It is really nice to not feel alone. And we've realized, especially in Empowered Moms, is that not everybody's like us. Not everybody is a big dreamer, right? And not everybody agrees with what we're doing, meaning like, why can't you just be a mom? And you know what? I take no offense to that. I don't know why. Like, sometimes I ask God, I'm like, really? We could just be a stay-at-home mom and like not have all these crazy ambitions, but that is not what the gift I was given. And so I have to embrace that and also understand that I am a mom and I'm a business owner. And there are days where one will take priority over the other, usually families first, but every once in a while, I'm like, no, if I have a big event, I'm like, if the kids are sick, I'm like, dad or grandpa or somebody else, please help, right? Because I got to ask for that help. There's something, big on the plate. So I think that can be a little bit lonely. So if you are a highly ambitious woman that needs community of like-minded people, please come find us, because we do not judge that. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're just wondering, is there more purpose or passion? Not to say that what you're doing is not enough. And that's what I want people to make sure, that we do not just say you're not doing enough. It's this thing in your heart that you can't quiet, and you're meant for something else also. We will accept you. We don't judge that. We actually embrace it, because we're all a little crazy like that too.
I love it. So before we get into how people can find you, because I definitely want you to take a couple moments to talk about that, because they're going to want to find you. Lastly, I just want to give you the space to talk about anything you feel like the last word, or your advice for someone who maybe isn't at a 9 or a 10 yet. Maybe they're listening and recognizing, okay, I've been at a 9 or a 10 and I brought myself back. We all have moments, but I'm not living at a 9 and a 10, but I do feel like I need to learn what to do as I'm approaching a 9 or a 10. What would be, obviously, and how to find you too, we want to know, but what would be your best piece of advice when you're in a situation and maybe you just can sense that you're getting there? What can you do to maybe not hit the 9 or 10?
I'm going to go deeper with this one. There's a lot of stuff I said that was kind of like surface level, but here I'm a little deeper with this one. And this is kind of coming out of the blue, which I told you I don't believe in coincidences. I want you to think about the little girl version of yourself. And because when you're getting to a 9 or 10, remember, you feel like your lack of control, and there's probably something you're not getting, or something that you're upset about, or something that's not making you happy. There's this little girl inside of you that is probably a big dreamer, and maybe needed some coping skills that she didn't have back then, but you do. And I think because it's individually for everyone. So for me, it's like when I get to that 9 or 10, and then I become aware of it. Awareness is everything. If you haven't heard that yet, it's like as soon as you're aware that you're getting there and you don't like it, that's when you can choose a different outcome. I write about that in my book, is that, you have an awareness. You actually know, I don't like the way I'm acting. I don't like where this is going. You consider these choices. I can keep going this route. For me, it'd be like the mom volcano, where I'm like the angry, ugly monster mom, right? Or I can choose a different response and act in alignment, right? So again, I have choices here. I can keep going crazy. I can be the mean mom that's like yelling and screaming at the volcano, or the 9 out of 10 where I'm just like, I want to burn my business to the ground because I'm so burnt out, that type of thing. If you can pull it back, it's almost like a stoplight. So you pull it back And you're like, what can I control in this moment? And I know that's really simple, but sometimes that little girl version of you needs a little bit of that coping skill, because I think to me, when I get there, it's the angry little girl version of me. It's like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this is not your dream. Like, what is going on here? And where are you not asking for help when you need it? So I know there was kind of a lot with that, but that's what I have to do. But I think the biggest thing is taking that deep breath and pausing and reflecting, saying, what's okay and what's not okay here? What here do I think I can control? Because just coming back to like my nursing background really quick is that when you take those deep breaths, it resets your nervous system, and you're not in like that fight mode. You start just pulling back. When you're in a fight mode, a stress, anxiety, you actually don't think clearly. And I can relate this to like if someone was, I don't know, I could go on and on about these stories, but basically like in an emergency situation in the hospital, you'll notice the people that are super calm and then the ones freaking out. The ones freaking out cannot make a logical decision. Like they just can't make the rational decision because they're not calm enough, right? That makes sense. Even with like children, the ones that have probably been through it 10 times or 100 times or whatever, no, they are taking deep breaths. Even if they're stressed and anxious about this patient's outcome, they can take deep breaths and keep moving, and they are thinking clearly. And you can hear them rattling off orders or medications and what to do. And you're like, how do they do that? It's because they put themselves in a calmer state. So once you can put yourself there, whatever length of time that takes you, try to think about, is there anything outside of the box that I'm not considering? Right? Because usually it's in there. Usually the answer is something that you haven't thought of before, but if you could just pause and be quiet for a minute, maybe it's something about nourishing that little girl inside of you. Maybe it's the, coping mechanism you haven't found yet, but you're like, I know there's something else out there. And then that's the other piece too, is who could help me? I don't know if I have these skills. Is there a friend that's really good at, maybe it is boundaries that I could call, or maybe it is reaching out to me or Holly or somebody that you're like, does anybody work with people like this? Right. So I really do think it's bringing it into awareness and calming yourself as best you can, and then trying to choose a different outcome.
Yeah, as you were speaking, when you said awareness, that was the light bulb for me. Because I was thinking about, calming yourself, getting your breath. I've heard of all of that. But I think the crucial piece, and you hit it, and it right away when you said it, like, that's it, is awareness. You have to be able to know that you're getting there. So you have to pay more attention. And I think sometimes we forget to they say, we didn't put ourselves on the list, but being more aware with so much stimulus we have going all the time in our face, and we've got kids and we've got work and we've got businesses and we've got social media. It seems like it's constant. And our brain has adapted, I believe, and you have the medical background, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like maybe our brain is starting to adapt to all this fast pace. And I'm wondering, is it possible we almost lose or we're lessened in that awareness piece?
Oh, yeah. Easily. I mean, how many times have you been like, okay, I'm going to go to my phone because I've got to do this one task. And then all of a sudden you get caught in social media for 10 minutes or whatever. And you're like, wait, what was I going to do?
If it's only 10 minutes, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got lucky, but I think it's true. And then again, where we were right back to that anxiety, right? But again, the other thing I was saying before is that quick response to non-emergent requests. This happened all the time at the hospital. When I was in leadership, I get the email, Emily, when you get a chance, can you just do this for me? Or can you send me this policy? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then I was like complaining that I didn't get this payroll done or whatever. I'm like, well, then why didn't I just not answer the when you get a chance? Right. So it's being able to discern that is not a priority, because when you give that away, like I was saying before, is you're making that request, that person, that thing a priority over maybe you're doing something more important. And so that awareness too of saying, oh, I'm just so busy all the time. Well, where have you chosen the busyness over helping yourself? And that is really deep, but it's something I would work with people on. It comes down to like a self-worth and self-respect and self-love, which again, we weren't getting into in this conversation, but like, I'm just going to say it like bluntly, like, do you love yourself enough to say no to somebody else and say, I gotta just choose a different outcome, and I'm okay with them being disappointed in my answer? Because if they don't respect your boundary or your no, that's on their character. It is not personal. And as soon as you start realizing that your boundary is not personal to someone else, it is literally just your limit, I promise you things will start changing. It can't not change if you realize I just have to stay like, this is my limit. There's only so much I can give right now. And if I don't communicate my limit, no one will ever know. They're just going to keep asking you.
Oh my goodness. If that isn't the God's honest truth, I mean, for sure, because we're all so needy. There's so much going on. And I mean, we could talk here all day long. I could sit here and just pick your brain all day long. I can see why you need 12 weeks at least with people, because we've only hit on a few really big areas of life, but there's so much to getting yourself back in alignment. And you are a huge wealth of knowledge and just a huge resource. So I would love to hear from you. How do people find you if they want to work with you? I'm sure you're all over socials, and where's the best place? And then I'm also going to be, of course, anyone listening, it will be linked below, all of the contact information for Dr. Emily, for you to be able to get with her on, sitting down and getting that first session worked out.
I mean, I would say a lot of it's on Instagram or LinkedIn. Our website's empoweredmoms.co. We'll put it at the bottom there, but there's an email through there. Whatever way anybody wants to reach out, and I'm happy to give more information about our community. We have a free community, so that's on Facebook right now is Empowered Moms. Is really just kind of getting into our world. Our email list is where you're going to find all of our happenings. So through the website is our email list. That's probably the best way, so you can kind of know what we have going on as the community. Maybe what I'm doing more one-on-one if I have some openings there. Then you can just respond back to those emails and we can get in touch. It is me. I'm a real person and I do care about you and I will respond back to you. And I do have my boundaries. And but I do care. Anyone that reaches out to me personally, you will get a personal.
I love that. So you said Empowered Moms is the free Facebook group that you have? Okay. And the website was empoweredmoms.co? Yes. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having more conversations and, of course, coming to your fabulous events because I enjoy them myself. So thank you again so much.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you.
Really appreciated your time. Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on Onwards and Upwards. We will see you next time.